Terence Crawford says Charlo is jealous of him and Errol Spence, and he's not on our level. It's your boy Cardinal Red Sports. Let's talk about it. Alright, so WBO welterweight champion Terence Bud Crawford was recently on a podcast where he was asked about Jermell Charlo. I never say his name right, but he was asked about the Charlo. 154 Charlo, that's what we gonna call him. So Terence Crawford said that he feels that Charlo is not only jealous of his status and Errol Spence Jr.'s status, but that Charlo would never ever be on either one of those guys' level. And wow, what a statement. And I don't even really know where to start with that one, but I guess you can start at, why would Terence Crawford feel that way? Why would Terence Crawford feel like Jermell Charlo, that Charlo is jealous of him? Or even jealous of Errol Spence, which is the weird part, is that he threw in Errol Spence's name. And I think by now people have caught on to the fact that Terence Crawford uses Errol Spence's name to keep himself in the spotlight, because I think he realizes up until this point that Errol Spence is just way more popular than him. You know, I would have to agree that Charlo isn't, and it's kind of weird that Charlo isn't as popular as Terence Crawford or Errol Spence. Terence Crawford to a lesser extent, because I feel like in popularity, they kind of like neck and neck when it comes to popularity. I think that Charlo and Terence Crawford is more of a comparison than Charlo and Errol Spence. I think Errol Spence, I don't know why Errol Spence is so likable. I don't even know why I ride with Errol Spence as much as I do, as far as boxing goes. But as far as personality, I don't understand why so many people gravitate more towards Spence than Crawford. But when it comes to boxing, you can obviously see why people rock with Spence more than Crawford. It's the talent levels. It's the level of competition that they faced off with. And it's the willingness to make entertaining fights on Errol Spence's part. Now, when it comes to personality, I don't know what it is about Errol Spence's personality that's more attractive to people than Terence Crawford is. And it's almost the same thing when it comes to Charlo and Crawford. I don't understand why Charlo isn't as popular as a fighter like Errol Spence. And I think it's kind of unfair to compare Charlo and Spence because they are friends. And you would think that Charlo kind of shares a portion of Errol Spence's fan base because they are friends. When it comes to jealousy, why would Terence Crawford think that Charlo is jealous of him? Number one, I don't think there's a jealousy issue at all on the part of Charlo. Now, on the part of Crawford, I think there's a huge jealousy issue. And I don't think his jealousy issue is something that is aimed directly at Charlo. I think his jealousy is more aimed at Errol Spence. But since Charlo is the next best thing to Errol Spence, and it's crazy because Charlo is undisputed already. Errol Spence is not even undisputed, and Errol Spence is still more popular than Charlo. So you would have to think like, okay, so Errol Spence is in your weight class, got more belts than you, he's fought tougher fights. Why aren't you saying all this stuff about Errol Spence? Even though he brings Spence's name up, but he's directing his anger. You can tell that he has anger towards Spence and jealousy towards Spence, but he's directing all that at Charlo. It's almost like Charlo is he's the fall guy in a way for Terence Crawford. He's, instead of pointing all his anger at Spence and people saying, well, you never fight Spence or you don't want to take the Spence fight, he aims all that anger at Charlo because he knows he's not going to take that Charlo fight. Terence Crawford's not moving to 154 pounds. He blew a bunch of smoke up everybody's butt during the summertime, talking about if I don't get the Spence fight while I'm moving up to 154. Well, you had the Spence fight, you turned it down, and you took on David Evanzian. He didn't even go get a weaker 154 fight. I mean, he could have went up to 154 and took the most cupcake fight he could possibly find, but I think people would have given him more credit than fighting David Evanzian, because I think a 154 fight, it doesn't matter really who it is because they punch a little harder up there. people would have gave him more credit for taking that fight than they do taking the David Evansian fight. You know, Evansian is pretty much a nobody. His biggest win was like back in 2016. He has no name in the welterweight division. He's ranked like number 8 or 9, depending on what sanctioning body you're looking at. And it just makes no sense at this point why Terence Crawford is even going down this road. Now, once again, I think it's indirect anger. I'm gonna aim my anger at Charlo, because I can't really aim it at Errol Spence, because the fans will chew me up and talk bad about me because they know the truth by now. Fans know what's really going on now that they watched the negotiating process play out. They heard what you had to say during the summertime. You talked a lot of big talk during the summertime, and you backed none of it up. Basically, everything he said during the summer, he basically flipped it on his head and went in the opposite direction. Because we all know he said he wanted the Errol Spence fight. That's the fight he wants. He don't want no other fight. But if he can't get that fight, he's moving to 154. And he did neither one of those things. So it's almost to the point where you can't take anything that Terence Crawford says for face value. Everything he says is kind of just a ploy. It's a ploy to get people to listen to him. It's a ploy to try to make himself seem bigger and badder and tougher than he really is. And I think it's something that's going to completely impact his career later on down the line. It might not be immediate, but if he don't fight Errol Spence ever, his next 2-3 years worth of his career is going to be horrible. And if he doesn't fight Spence and doesn't fight a Charlo, like next, after the Evansian fight, and he goes and fights another, lousy 147 fighter, he goes and fights the number 10 or 8, or he ducks Boots, or, he doesn't call out a Virgil Ortiz, or if his next fight isn't Spence or Boots, Virgil, it can't be Thurman now, because Thurman's going to fight Spence and get beat. So Thurman's going to pretty much be retired after the Spence fight anyway. So, I mean, the toughest 2 fights that are left out there for him would be a Virgil fight or a Boots fight. There are a couple other names at 147. They're not as big as Boots and Virgil yet, but they definitely could be formidable opponents. If the Conor Benn situation wouldn't have popped off, I would say I would like to see him fight Conor Benn, but we all know that there's something fishy going on with Conor Benn. So, if Terence Crawford doesn't take at least a decent opponent, a number 3, a number 2, a number 3, maybe a number 4 out of the welterweight division, out of the 147 division, and he goes with another, number 7 or lower type of competition, then, I mean, his career is pretty much over. You might as well just consider him a journeyman. He's going to hold on to that belt as long as he can, until he either gets stripped of it or just goes into retirement with the belt, and the belt gets placed basically up for grabs for whoever can get it. And the one thing I hate about this situation is I hope Spence doesn't have to wait around for 2 more years just to still not get the Terence Crawford fight, and then have to go through some type of situation of a title eliminator for the WBO title if Terence Crawford decides to retire with the title, and then it becomes vacant after that. He's just creating a bigger mess for everybody in 147, and it's going to be seriously hard to clean that up. Y'all let me know what y'all think about that down in the comment section below. That like button for me, share, subscribe. Holler at me on all social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. More than likely get a response on the tube. Holler at me over there. And Twitter. And we are...
It's your boy Keys, neighborhood employee. Niggas knew that I was coming with fire. Y'all ain't up to my pie and up under a car. Your head under a tie, it's the S and the I. Player, we supposed to win. I'm in the booth focusing with coke in hand. Dude hate it when you see the chief running in. Ass mouth hurting like his wisdom teeth coming in. Now that's a roundhouse kick. Come round your house, letting rounds out quick. From Newburgh to downtown, it's that Midwest to down south shit. Y'all ain't fucking with.
She chillin', saying tryna put the feel on the mouth. What's good? She nothing, saying tryna show his niggas how to round.